All right, welcome guys. Welcome to the Brain and Spine workshop. So excited to do this workshop. A couple weeks ago, I started doing like updates to these slides, and I always do updates to the slides, and it makes me realize how much I do love teaching this workshop. And I try to do it once a year, and they were chiropractic's birthday. And so when I was teaching the new patient orientation workshop last week, I was like, oh yeah, chiropractic started in 1895. It's like 120, and one of my patients looks at me and goes, it's 130. So tomorrow, chiropractic celebrates its 130th birthday. So I'm like, what better way to celebrate that than to give back and to teach the community and you guys about what we actually do as chiropractors. So thank you guys so much. This is a Dr. Jamie original. You won't see this kind of workshop anywhere else because I wrote this, oh my gosh, when I first opened my practice. So it had to be like 2010-ish because I was just new in practice, 2009. And I actually helped a professor, an adjunct professor at Endicott. Her son had sensory issues, and she was the cognitive psych professor. And so she had me come in and teach a lecture on proprioception. Now, those here, you guys are all my patients, so I can say that you guys know this, that our big study really started 2016, what we realized we did with the brain. And so this workshop went from this like little 45-minute lecture, and now it's about an hour of information. So put your seatbelt on. We're going to get really nerdy tonight. And I absolutely love this workshop because chiropractic has this weird reputation of only being for back pain or neck pain or I guess headaches. I guess people are starting to understand we do help with headaches as well. But that's, my favorite saying, that's like robbing the bank and stealing the pens. There's so much what we do. And there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so I'm hoping tonight that we're going to debunk it. We're going to use science. We all know that I have this nerdy neuroscience background, neurophysiology background, and this is what I love teaching. I've taught this workshop. If you guys have a place you want me to bring in, especially at home, if you have an organization, a hospital, I've done this at hospitals, universities, and even other chiropractic clinics in other states, which is really fun. My friends bring me in. They're like, "Hey, nerd, come teach my patients what we do." And I'm like, "All right, I got this." So feel free to bring me in. I've done some occupational therapy clinics, you name it. This is a science-based workshop. It's great for parents and great for people in the science community. So, and if you guys have any questions, I always say I don't love talking to my phone, but those at home, thank you for tuning in. If you have any questions, just let me know. And so you guys ready to dive in? All right, let's talk about my first example. Now it's funny, because remember, this workshop started a while ago. And the funny thing is now I've done it in other states. And the best is when you mention Sidney Crosby and you ask anyone know who Sidney Crosby is. It depends on state whether people like this slide or not. And I learned that I'm kind of a traitor to my own hometown in Boston because Bostonians, do you guys like him? No. Flyers fans back there is like, boo. I think when I was in Michigan too, the Red Wings fans were like, really? So we all know, a lot of us, if you're a hockey fan at this point in time, and mind you, this was written a while ago, you know who Sidney Crosby is. He's probably one of the best players in the NHL. Come on, you guys have to say he is one of him and Ovechkin have been playing for a while, and they're two of the best hockey players in the NHL. But what people don't realize, because it was a while ago, sorry, I told you I'm a traitor to you guys. But what people don't realize, I know this is really small, but back in 2012, I don't know if you guys remember, 2011, 2012, he was concussed so bad he was never supposed to play again. I don't know if you guys remember that. And what's really cool is that in 2012, he went down to the Carrick Institute, which is a specialized form of chiropractic neurology that deals with concussions. A lot of deal with concussions, and they help with concussions. Hey, hockey fans, how's Sydney doing since 2012? Couple gold medals, couple Stanley Cups, few trophies here and there. Let's just say, for the lack of, exaggerating, he's kind of kicking butt. sorry guys, sorry Bruins fans, but he is. He's done incredibly. And what's really funny is that we have this. People don't know that. I really believe that people who have concussions, especially the kids in our community, they need to get to a chiropractor ASAP because we're the ones that help stimulate the brain, which we're going to talk about tonight. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but I even listed some of the things that he's accomplished, like Hart Memorial Trophy, Stanley Cup, ever since that. And so he's gone on to be a great player and hasn't missed a beat. Mind you, this guy was never supposed to play again. All right, so let's go from one extreme to another. Meet Declan. If you guys go on our Facebook reviews, you'll see this cute little guy. He's actually, I think he's about 6 or 7 now, which is crazy. Back when he was 3 months old, his mom and dad brought him to me. And there are so many baby adjustments that I wish I videoed to show you guys the before and after. And I have so many, it's funny, like every week you guys can ask me about a baby miracle that happens in my office. It's pretty amazing. But this little guy, wasn't particularly, he wasn't like colicky or anything like that. He just didn't turn his head. He wouldn't turn his head a certain way. And he was 3 months old. You're supposed to be able to turn your head. So mom was a part of this mom's group that I still see a lot of the kids from. And they said, oh, you gotta go see Dr. Gene. Your kid's not moving his head. You're not turning his head. So, and of course, latching issues and all that stuff, you can't turn your head. I adjusted the baby. And the amazing thing is mom and dad were not under chiropractic care. So can you imagine handing me your 3-month old and going, hey, do something, like, oh, love and trust. But when I tell you we should have recorded this, it was so cool. I adjusted this baby with about as much pressure as checking an avocado. That's how small the pressure is to adjust a baby. And if you guys have seen me adjust a baby, you could see it. It looks like I don't really do anything. We pick him up, and for the first time, he turns his head right, he turns his head left, and he looks up and then centers. Mind you, he wasn't holding his head up very well either. And his parents were like, holy crap, did you see that? I love the holy crap, did you see that? Because I've had that a bunch of times in my office, especially with the babies. And I wish I recorded it. And it was just incredible. It was incredible to watch. And then she writes in this testimony, which is really cool, that he went to his mom group and started rolling for the first time. He was behind his milestones and he's crushing it ever since. Why? Why? He didn't have pain. He wasn't colicky that we knew, right? There was nothing to do with pain. This had to do with brain development, right? Why is that? So now we're going from brain development as a baby to concussions as an adult. What the hell does that have to do with back pain, right? So we're going to talk about this tonight is why would chiropractic affect the brain? Oh God, you guys ready to get nerdy? I love that you guys are here. I love that you guys are tuned home to listen to me talk about something that this is like my passion. Like if I will speak till I'm blue in the face that chiropractic is about the brain. It's not about pain. So in order to understand why we help the brain, we got to go way back. We got to talk about brain development. Okay. And this is kind of cool because I see some grandparents in the audience and parents in the audience, and you guys can help me out with answering some of these questions. When your baby is born, right, you have 100 billion neurons. So those are brain cells. Kind of cool when you think about 100 billion, right? You have your midbrain, you have your brain stem. So brains kind of grow out. You have just enough, and this is what's interesting. Babies can't really see very well. They just have enough brain development that they can eat, they can sleep, they can hear, they can smell. Like it's more like survivally, right? And they're really stimulating that right side of their brain, right? You stimulate your right brain first. Look at this, by the way. This is so cool. I dork out with me. Come on, guys. When you're born, these are the brain cells. Look how many connections by year 2. Because 65% of your brain development is in the first year of life. And by age 3, it's 90% of your brain is formed. How wild is that? So this is why I always stress about getting chiropractic kids in here before age 3, because your brain is still developing and you want to develop properly. Then we flip from right side of the brain to left. All right, parents and grandparents in here. What is the number one question you get from a 3-year-old? Thank you. A plus. Why? So that is the prime example. And by the way, that's how you know they're on time with their brain development. To going from right brain to that logic-y left brain. Poor Katie. So James is like, he's 3.5 now and everything. Why, mama? Why, mama? And she's laughing. She's like, thank God I've seen enough of your lectures that I know that this is a good thing, right? And that's what they do. They're stimulating the opposite side of the brain. So, okay. So those of you with kiddos, how do we develop a brain? So in those first 3 years of life, we talk about brain development. We really want to stimulate that brain for growth. Do we could put babies in like a dark room, or do we want like colors and lights and right? We want them to see. So guys, give me some stuff, right? Light, sound. You guys remember Pat the Bunny? Tactile, soft touch. You're growing a brain through the sensories, right? The senses, taste, temperature, touch. Think of children's books, right? And then gravity and proprioception. Ha ha ha, I told you I'm going to lecture about proprioception. Gravity also stimulates your brain. Weird, right? Did you guys know that crawling, this cross crawl pattern, is how you connect your left and right hemisphere? So earlier, was it last year? I think it was last year that they decided to take that milestone away. All of us chiropractors, OTs, and PTs panicked because if your kid doesn't crawl, if he scoots, that's a big problem. That is how your left and right brain. Now, back when we were kind of younger, at least we can override it by going to a playground and climbing stairs and climbing rocks and all that. But nowadays, we have kids on their iPads, and their tablets. So are they getting that cross crawl? No. And it's not good for our brains. Our hemispheres being linked from the corpus callosum. If you meet, I actually worked with a baby once with a genetic disorder where he never formed his corpus callosum. So that he had no coordination. He couldn't really crawl. And it was very interesting to see that. That's how you connect your brain centers. So Proprioception, we're going to dive that in a second. Okay, so those at home, we're going to dive. You guys, by the way, you guys don't have to worry about the secret words. You get credit just for being here, and you get. Oh, did I mention there's organic, gluten-free, dairy-free cake? No, 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 you should have came down, right, for chiropractic's birthday. I had to. I had to. All right. So the first word for you guys at home is happy, because I'm happy, because you guys are learning nerdy neurology with me. Okay. So let's dive into proprioception. Y'all heard me say this word before. It's even on our office T-shirt. For those at home who aren't my patients, we actually made office tank tops. We're going to do it again. We'll have to do it again. They were workout tank tops a few years ago that said proprioception on point, and they were awesome. So proprioception, what is it and why is it important? It's how you perceive space. Remember in my office, everyone close your eyes and boop your nose. How in the world? Really? No? Boop your nose? Close your eyes? Close your eyes, boop your nose? No? Okay. Well, I tried. At home, close your eyes, boop your nose. Great example, proprioception. Proprioception is spatial awareness. If you close your eyes and you touch your nose, how did I know it was there? You just know. You have some kind of spatial awareness. That's proprioceptors. That's from the joint capsules, right? So you find them in like the little teeny muscle spindles and the joint capsules in your joints. I know it's kind of redundant. They also give you guys energy and they promote energetic signals to your brain. We know this. If I have you guys sitting for 2 hours tonight, don't worry, I won't. I did in Michigan. I had 4 hours spot in there. I know. And you know what's funny? I got a lot of compliments after because I was wearing an orange shirt. And someone in the back, I ran into her in the bathroom. She goes, "Oh, you're my speaker. I just see this orange dot going like this." She's like, "You're really entertaining." I'm like, "Thank you. I try." But we know this because if you guys were sitting here for hours and hours or get on a plane and go to like California, are you awake or are you're gonzo? I love that. Gonzo. I'm going to use that. You're sleepy. You guys ever fall asleep on a treadmill or on a bike at the gym? You're like lifting weights, right? Why? Because you're moving. You know, I always laugh about at yoga when you're like the poses and they're like, clear your brain. I'm like, oh crap, I forgot almonds at the store. Like, you know, because your brain is going. It's really hard to clear your brain when you're moving your spine around because you're stimulating your brain, you're waking your brain up. So I always tell that to the kiddos in here. I go, you fall asleep in class, just squeeze your calves and, do like leg raises, while you're sitting there. It will help you wake up your brain. But what people don't realize is that proprioception, really, a lot of it sits in that upper cervical joint. And this top joint, in the very, very top of our spine, we call it the upper cervical joint, upper neck. So if you hear me say upper cervical, I'm just talking about your upper neck. Sometimes when I adjust you guys, I'm like, ooh, your upper cervical, because I love lecturing on this part of the joint. It's basically where the back of your head sits on your first neck vertebra, fits on your second vertebra. This is your upper cervical joint. And it was funny. They say 50% to 75%, depending on who you ask, of your rotation comes from this joint. That's why after I adjust your atlas, especially on that first adjustment, I ask you to do remember the pose check? I say, hey, turn your head now. And you're like, whoa. I had one guy told me he felt like the exorcist. I said, cool, just don't throw up on me. And it was really funny. Called me and I was like, hey, how'd you have your adjustment? He goes, I still feel like the exorcist. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about that. But you will notice more rotation after that adjustment, right? And so much of your proprioception, they say the most proprioceptive input you have is in here, the top, and then your sacrum, the bottom, right? And that good stimulation is how we stimulate your brain, how we keep your brain healthy. But the problem is, this is the number one joint that gets misaligned with birth, right? And I could definitely tell you that from just having so much clinical experience of seeing babies. This is the number one region we see that. We've known this. This is a study, and I like keeping this up because this was done in 1987. Has birth changed since then? Do we see more C-sections? We absolutely see more C-sections. Crazy. And you're right, birth, kind of not that, it hasn't really changed a whole lot. It should change more, but in like not a good direction. This study found that 80% of kids, they looked at 1,000 infants. So this wasn't a like tiny study, right? That 80% of their C1C joint was blocked, subluxated, right? So in this study alone, they found 80%, 8 out of 10 babies were born with subluxations. Think of that. We'll go over why that's a problem. But why am I seeing so many kids with these subluxations? And the number one thing is traumatic birth. It always depresses me when I update this slide because I'm praying for the C-section rate to go down, and I feel like every year it's going up. It was 25% And I think it was 30% last time I updated it. And I just looked it up, 2023's numbers, because they're always behind, just came out and it's 33.5%. That means 1 out of 3 people, women in Massachusetts, are giving birth via C-section. It means 1 in 3 babies are born. I mean, 1 in 3 women can't have a natural birth. Now, I'm not saying C-sections aren't necessary. They are. There are emergencies where they are. I just have a hard time believing that 1 out of 3 women can't give birth. I see it in my office a lot. They love doing early inductions when the baby's just not ready. And I'm not sure why they expect a baby to go that early, do induction if it's just not ready. That's like the number one thing I see when we see C-sections. But sometimes, like, I don't see forceps, thank God, anymore. I used to have patients come in with the lines still from the forcep baby. I don't see it as much anymore. Thank God. And they used to use vacuum and suction way worse. Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. Yeah. Yes, C-section. Yeah. Absolutely. In Massachusetts, it's really hard to find. I met one woman in the last, 13 years in this practice, if you want to count my associateship, one woman who had twins via vaginal birth. And I think I high-fived her because I was like, how the heck did you do that in Massachusetts? Who lets you do that? I think she was like a home birth and she told them to whatever, which I love that about her. I was like, wow, you're my hero. But yeah, you don't, not in Massachusetts, they don't let you. It's crazy. Like, they don't even let you try, which is interesting, at least most of the doctors I've heard of. Walking too early, I can call it out on an x-ray if you don't have a low back curve. So remember I said crawling is important for your brain? When you're born, you only have one curve. You have this big C curve, right? Oh, my poor spine. I need an adjustment here. So when you're born, you have one curve. A lot of people don't know that. Tummy time is how you get your C spine. That's like, you see a baby call, I explain, actually I have a great slide when I do this for other, like for chiropractors, when I have a longer time. I have a great explain one where the babies are on their stomach and they do this. That's how they get their neck curve. When you pop up to crawling, that's how you get your low back curve. When I see somebody who has some severe L1, L2, L3 problems, I love it. I have them call, oh my gosh, one time I had this guy and he was definitely my dad's age because they had the same birth year. And I looked at his low back. I'm like, holy crap, dude, you never crawled. And it was so arthritic, L1, L2, L3. And he had no curve at all in his spine. And he was so funny. He looks at me and goes, do you want me to call my, oh, no. He came back in for his second report. And he goes, oh, by the way, I called my mom. And I'm going, wait, how old is your mom? And he goes, 94. And I was like, damn. And he goes, not only did I not crawl, she told me I was a hot mess. I was like, dude, so that's how bad it was. If mom remembers how many years later that he did not crawl and that left a mark on his low back throughout his life, and God only knows after we go over some of the data, what else it hurt him brain wise, which is interesting, right? But walking too early, kids should not walk early. We shouldn't encourage them to walk early. They should not be in car seats all the damn time. They should be on their stomachs. That's how you get your curves. That's how you pop up to crawling. I see babies on their back too much. There should be no flat heads. It's wild. I would say car seats belong in the car, but walking too early, we're talking like 9, 10 months. They should be walking no earlier than a year old. Walking and then they talk. It's funny. I always say walking and talking. On their back too much, not enough tummy time. There shouldn't even be tummy time. It just should be a thing. They should just be on their tummies. Heavy book bags. Backpacks are only supposed to be about 10% your body weight. Not good. I know. My grandparents were so cute. I remember one time I was like in middle school or something, and my grandma was so pissed off that how heavy my bag was that she took it off and put it on the scale. I remember she got so mad. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, Grams. Like, I got books. I don't know what to tell you. Even like falls and slips. I was at a Pee Wee football game on Sunday watching these kids hit each other. Honestly, I never know what I'm more concerned of, the football players or the cheerleaders, because I'm watching them lift each other up and they're little. And they're not landing that every time, especially at that age when they start flying. Like I've had so many injuries, girls come in with injuries from cheerleading too. So anytime these kids crash, soccer's no better. I was a soccer player. My neck curve was a mess from heading the ball and all that awful stuff. So cell phone screen time, we were laughing that you could see my Nerf gun in the background. For anyone who texts with their head down, I mean business. 60 degrees, add 60 pounds to your head. Homework posture, lack of physical exercise, all that good stuff. This is why I'm seeing so many kids with those subluxations. So as chiropractors, what we're looking for, and all those things can cause subluxations. You all know what subluxation is. God, I hope you all know what subluxation is, but let's just do a little quick review. What causes subluxations? We just went over a bunch of them for kids, but for us adults, what traumas, right? Traumas, whether it's micro trauma, sitting at our desk too long, looking at our phones too much, right? Falls. Oh, love you. Love you. Hey, you bounce back. You're getting there. Macro traumas. That's macro trauma, right? Car accidents, falls off roofs, falls off motorcycles. I'm not calling you guys out. I'm just throwing things out there, okay? But all of these things, if they're not corrected, leave marks in our spine, right? And you don't necessarily feel it. So all of these things can leave these misalignments. And the problem with misalignments, our spine, when it's in good condition, when we have these curves, it looks like a zipper, right? When we misalign the zipper, what happens to the motion in the spine, in those segments? This is why we call it segmental dysfunction. It's locked. Bingo. When it locks up, we have those subluxations, and then we're going to get into why that's an issue, right? So just like if you casted a fracture, what would the muscles look like when you take the cast off? Atrophied, right? You guys have seen that? You ever had a cast and you take it off and you're like, oh, I thought it was buff. This is depressing, right? Because what muscles don't move, what happens to them? They die. Good job. So if the joint doesn't move, what happens to the ligaments, the tendons, and all that? Say it again. They die, right? And that's why we get arthritic change, right? It also messes up the nerve interference, right? So we also talk about that. So when we have those subluxations, what do we mean by nerve interference? You've heard me say that all the time, that it causes nerve interference. We're going to talk about that. It's probably the mayor. For those of you who are not in Beverly, Massachusetts, there's a trash strike, and our mayor likes to call us every single day. No harm on him. It's just like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna laugh. I should do a little like, we should like go. I know, hey friends, this is our mayor. Everyone at home is like, what are they talking about? All right, anyway, so what is the subluxation? Remember I said nerve interference? So my favorite analogy, especially for you guys, when you're talking to someone about chiropractic, what does those subluxations block? Think of Wi-Fi signal, right? If you have one bar, how is your upload speed? Slow. How's your download speed? Slow. So if you have subluxation, it's like having like blockages on that Wi-Fi signal. You're not getting good information in your brain. You're not getting good information down. All right. So proprioception is part of that, because the joints don't move and they're subluxated. We don't get those joint capsules moving. We don't get those little muscle spindles moving. So you're not getting proprioceptive input. So, we talk about it's kind of important to have body awareness, right? Because if you don't, you're going to fall. How are you going to be at sports as a kid if you have no spatial awareness, right? So what's interesting about this proprioception, if you don't have movement in your spine, you have the opposite, which is called nociception. Your brain, like we said, it doesn't just need proprioception to grow. You need those joints to move, but it also needs it as we age to keep our brains healthy. I mean, Jesus, this woman here is a great example of this. The people in the gym that you see in their older age, what is their brain like versus somebody who's not moving, not working out, not walking? Oh my God, I was at the YMCA for a meeting today, and they had one of those classes where they're all like, woo! And I was like, I just finished my meeting. I was looking inside, I'm like, oh, would everyone know if I like jump in there? It looked like so much fun. And there was this woman, she had to be in her 70s in the front row. It was a crowded room, and she's wooing and doing her thing. And I'm like, that woman's my hero. And I would bet you that her brain is sharper than most of us, right? My grandfather was like that. He was doing push-ups on his 90th birthday, and he was on Facebook before my parents back in the day, which is really cool. When we don't have proprioception, our body goes into fight or flight. We're going to talk about that. We're going to keep this brief because I actually want to go into we know the link nowadays, but I'm not going to go into it just yet. But we know in proprioception, when we adjust your spine, we get the movement back in, and we get to fire up that brain with full Wi-Fi signal called proprioception. We actually shut down the stress response in your brain, in your body. So there's your garbage in equals garbage out. Proprioception's good stuff in equals good stuff out. So if you're subluxated, right, garbage in, your brain's not very happy, which creates that sympathetic nervous system drive, which is bad. We don't want to be in stress response. So this is my favorite example of stress response if a bear attacks you, did I tell you guys when I spoke in Michigan, this totally backfired on me? I was like, guys, if a bear attacks you, and then everyone's like, so? And I'm thinking to myself, oh crap, these people shoot bears. I was like, all right, if a dinosaur attacks us, I'm like, oh my gosh. It was actually really funny. I think I got like the entire room of doctors laughing because I just went, oh crap, this is like literally the worst example ever. All right, so as Massachusetts people, we do have bears in New Hampshire, right? If a bear attacks us, what happens to us? Would you? We'd be lunch. Exactly. We would absolutely be lunch. We got to get those Michiganders out here to shoot the bear, right? Oh, you got it. You activate that sympathetic fight or flight. Hey guys, is it healthy to be in fight or flight all the time? Hey, how long is it supposed to last? Not that long. We're supposed to fight the bear, go back to our cave and chill. Because is it good to have chronic high cortisol, which is your stress hormone, high heart rate all the time, decreased serotonin? We know a lot of people like, think of anxiety drugs, serotonin, right? Makes us happy. Increased stress, fear, anxiety, short-term memory decrease, cholesterol, bone loss. I mean, you name it. Like the stress response is really bad long-term, but do we need it to get out of the situation with danger? Absolutely. It's healthy short-term. It's just that chronic. It's not good long-term. So with a chiropractic adjustment, what's really cool as we stop, we reset those adjustments or do those adjustments, fix those subluxations, you guys will shut down your stress response every time. That's why it's actually funny. One of my patients, oh my God, I told him I was going to talk about him tonight. He's been a friend of mine forever. He's as nerdy as I am with all the weird biohacking stuff. Like he's up there with me with weird things we do, like awesome stuff, right? And he finally started coming in to see me, and it was like his second progress check. So I think he was like 2 months in. And he's got one of those Whoop bracelets, which I love. The Whoop bands are really cool. They should give me a kickback or give me a free one. I see you. No, I'm just kidding. But they're like Aura Ring or whatever, like that. They call it like that. The bodywear. What do they call it? The hardware stuff. Very cool, right? And they can test all of your sleep, your HRV, all kinds of cool stuff, recovery. So he gives a progress check and he goes, so at first I thought it was a fluke. I go, oh gosh, where are we going with this? Because my friends use the Whoop bracelet for the research on sleep and chiropractic. And he was so funny. He goes, you want to say the data? And I'm like, yeah. Do you know who you're talking to? His sleep improved. His recovery has gotten ridiculous. And actually, it was funny. I was talking to him today when I was adjusting. I go, can I use you as an example? He goes, of course you can. He goes, it's still great, like months later. And of course, his post x-rays look fabulous. Like he is right on target. And he's like, it's still great. He goes, you should still see my sleep because we're shutting down his stress response. The dude has been in the restaurant industry pretty much his whole life. So you can only imagine how stressed he was before. And now we're bringing that down. And so his sleep's improving, his recovery, very cool stuff. So it's really fun to see that. So by restoring healthy proprioception, especially in those little babies, we're decreasing that stress response. It's funny. One of the big three, I think, with chiropractic and babies, colic, sleep, and poop. We all know I'm the poop wizard. I have the wand and the mug to prove it. What is the common denominator on those three things? It's not pain with these babies. It's stress response. If your stress response is high, do you think those babies are upset? They're stressed? Sure, they're crying all the time. By the way, it was really cool. There was a chiropractic and colic study that was funny. They kind of tried to tell us it didn't work. And then you read the study, it's because the parents only got 4 extra hours of not crying. Hey parents, would you take 4 extra hours of not crying with a colicky baby? So the study tried to say that it didn't work because it didn't completely cure it, but they actually had 4 extra hours not crying. I was like, that's cute. All right. That's why you got to actually read the studies, right? So colic, sleep, do you think stress response, and poop? Do you think stress response has to do with those two? Right. And that's why we see some really cool things with those kids. Cool studies, because let's put our glasses on. Let's talk about this. This is in your slides if you ever want to bring this up. This is just a duh. They were actually able to go in and show that we increase range of motion segmentally in the joints. Duh. Of course we do. This is one of the, remember I always talk about the 4 gold standard studies about chiropractic and blood pressure? This is one of them. It's a meta-analysis. And it looked at 28 studies on chiropractic and blood pressure. Duh, we decrease stress, we decrease blood pressure. Now, caveat, disclaimer, if you eat McDonald's every day and you don't exercise and you're stressed to hell, there is nothing chiropractic can do for you for blood pressure. You gotta meet us part way on that, okay? Migraines, right? Or actually not migraines, blood flow to the head. This was a really cool study that was done. They actually can measure how much blood flow is going to your head. How cool is that? They noticed when we took that curve, we got that curve back in the neck, which I know with corrective chiropractic care in our office, that's what we do. We increase blood flow to the head. So this is why I love seeing migraine patients, but we really got to establish that neck curve and keep it that way in order to keep them away. Thank God for chiropractic. I don't have migraines anymore, but it's because we increase blood flow to the head. Migraines are activations of the sympathetic nervous system, which restricts blood flow to the head. Holy crap. No wonder we work for migraine so well. Some great migraine studies too. I just didn't add them. And then this last one that shows that we can influence your blood marker, your hormones. Like, isn't that wild? And it has to do with like inflammation, but think of it like it shows that chiropractic adjustment. This was a blood work study that shows that we affect things like oxytocin. I always just thought you guys liked me and wanted hugs, but also we may influence cortisol, duh, the stress hormone cortisol, which we need to decrease, or else we're going to be very unhappy people. So where does all this proprioception goes? It goes to the cerebellum. And the cerebellum is this tiny little area in the back of your head. It is only about 10% of your brain, but holds 70% of your brain, of your neurons, right? We talked about this the other night because I said, I would, if I couldn't do this, what is this a classic? Oh man, I gotta get adjusted. What is this a classic example of? Sobriety test! Because, by the way, I taught this exact workshop. Of course, it was a while ago, so I didn't have much research in, or didn't have as much info in it. But I taught a lot to an OT clinic, and the occupational therapy assistant, mind you, it was like half parents, half OTs, yelled, "It's the drunk part of the brain." And she wasn't wrong. It is the drunk part of the brain. This is the part of the brain that gets impaired when you're drunk. So can you do this? So it's coordination of movement. We call it the conductor of the brain. It conducts the whole brain. But I always laugh because we know that if you are drunk, you're most likely kind of a dick and that reasoning thing kind of goes away, right? So we know it's not just the cerebellum. We know the cerebellum affects other parts of the brain. So if the cerebellum is the conductor to the brain, right, we want good input to that cerebellum. Where does it come from? Because my favorite word in the whole entire world? No, it's probably, I don't know, maybe proprioception is one of my favorite words in the whole entire world. Proprioception feeds the cerebellum. So remember I just told you garbage in equals garbage out? Well, good stuff in equals good stuff out. Proprioception runs that cerebellum, keeps it in check. Because if your conductor is having a bad night, how are you guys sounding? How's that sounding? Not good, not coordinated. So if your cerebellum is not working great, how's your brain? Not great. It's funny. I love the stories about the kids in my office, but I even love the adults in my office that notice those changes when they start getting adjusted. It's funny. I actually have two goalies in here who've noticed that they're actually playing better since they started getting adjusted. You know where your arms are, right? Proprioception. So here's a study just to back it up. If you guys want to get really fancy, put your glasses on. That garbage in equals garbage out, I say good stuff in equals good stuff out, is called sensory motor integration. And this is a great study that shows when you get adjusted, you have better Wi-Fi signal to your brain and your body. This is why you're crushing the softball, right? Yes, absolutely. Because it's really important for sports, right? You're welcome. It's funny. I have so many patients that come in here for that alone. I laugh. I'm like, it's no big deal that we decrease your stress response, stimulate your brain, but God forbid you have a bad golf tournament. The week before the Kernwood tournament, if you don't think the guys are getting in extra, I really need to charge even more for that. I'm going to up my prices. The airlines do that. I'm going to start doing that. The week before the Kernwood golf tournament, I'm upping my prices for just them. Don't worry, you guys are fine. Uh, you're like, you better not before my like big softball match, and you're like, not before my hockey tournaments, right? But you guys know you play better. When I was playing soccer on Tuesday nights, sometimes I'd run up to Dr. Derek's office and we'd adjust each other, and I get really mad at him because I'd be yawning on my way to my game. My friends pulled me aside after the game, my teammates, and it was funny because they're both like really good, and I'm very mediocre at that point. And they're like, "Wow, Jamie, you're playing really well." And I was like, "Oh my God, it's because I started getting adjusted. I am my own proof," which is really hilarious. Maybe that's why I'm a good football player. But it's pretty cool. And by the way, it's my grandpa. He was, when he was alive, he was doing, it was funny. He must have been he wasn't quite 90 yet when we were doing yoga on his floor. I think that was about 80, well, he was like 88, 89 there. And he wanted me to show it like we were doing some yoga together. And I'm telling you, if there's any one example of healthy spine, healthy movement equals healthy brain. It's that man right there. He should have been a chiropractor. We also have really cool studies on this. I'm just not going over it for sake of time, but we do have studies that show where your ankles are better after adjustments. So important for falls in the elderly. If you don't take that step right, you're going to fall. Falls are really bad for the elderly. We know that, especially hip breaks. But also knowing your elbow is, knowing balance. This is why sports teams have chiropractors. It's a cheat. You know where your arm is. You're going to hit that ball better, right? So it's great. But what's cooler than that is the next thing we're going to go over. Now, at home, I'm going to give you a choice for your second secret word. You're either going to pick 130th or you're going to say birthday. Or you could say both. I don't really care. Just put that as your second word. 130. I am like mind blown that chiropractic is under 30, right? And it gets better with age. Like I'll show you the last few slides we're going to go over is where our studies are going now. And the one study that changed everything happened in 2016. And I freaking love the fact that I've hung out with Heidi. She's the bomb. You guys think I swear? You should meet the neurologist on this study. She is a neuroscience PhD who's a chiropractor. She's out of New Zealand. And I met her way before COVID. And it was when these studies first came out, and she went to Denmark and did this study. And actually, I think I put the video in here, so I'll play it. Yes, the video is the next slide. And they noticed that when they adjusted a patient on an EEG scan, and mind you, these were four neurologists who did not give a crap about chiropractic. They stimulated the brain 20%. This study has now been done. I think it was like that was the fourth time they did the study. And the funny thing is, fast forward 10 years later, or less than that, one of the neurologists is from Pakistan, and he's actually doing studies to see if he can bring brain function back with chiropractic care in people who've had stroke and lost limb function. Stay tuned. We're going to go over those studies in a second. So let me show you a really cool video from this awesome lady. Let's see if this works. Oh, do I need to get... hold on. Stay tuned. I need to get is it playing? Yeah, I'll go back. I need the remote. She's got a really cute voice too. Let's see if I can get this to work. I had to get a new HDMI cable, so there you go.
People who had never had any chiropractic care before attended 2 sessions. One with real chiropractic care and one with sham chiropractic care. During both sessions, whole head brainwaves were recorded. The brainwave recordings, or electroencephalography, EEG for short, showed some very clear changes in the way the brain functions after the chiropractic session, and no changes happened after the sham session. The study showed a change in brain function of almost 20% on average after the chiropractic session. This study is really important because it's the 4th time this very same finding has been published in reputable research journals. And this study's data is collected and analyzed by non-chiropractic scientists.
That's a nicer way of saying doesn't give a crap about chiropractic. Sorry. I mean, I'm not.
Because the Danish scientists recorded the brain waves, EEG, over the whole head from 64 individual electrodes, they could also work out exactly where the changes in function were happening after the chiropractic session. They were able to show that the changes were most likely taking place in an area of the brain called the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain is a little bit like the conductor of the brain, making all the
I argue with her. I call it the CEO. The conductor is the cerebellum, but it's okay. We will argue for the rest of the time on that.
area of the brain where your executive functions.
I think it's the parent of the brain because it kind of like to the other parts of the brain.
For our everyday behavior. It's the part of the brain needed for us to be able to carry out all goal-directed tasks: decision-making, memory and attention, intelligence, processing of pain and emotional responses to it, autonomic function, movement control, eye movements, and spatial awareness. Therefore, demonstrating that chiropractic care changes function of the prefrontal cortex could explain the many previous research results that have been documented with chiropractic care, such as improvements in sensorimotor function relevant to falls prevention in the elderly, or better joint position sense in both the upper limb and the lower limb. Also improved muscle strength in several lower limb muscles, better pelvic floor muscle control, and better ability to carry out mental rotations of objects in space.
Which is weird, but if you do this, it makes sense,
where your arms and
right?
legs are is very, very important. You need to know where you are to be able to move without having accidents. And it's also very important to be able to accurately perceive the world around you. This is a vital skill we need all day, every day. To recognize some objects, you may need to mentally rotate them. For example, to recognize the letter P versus the letter B, if they're not upright, you would need to mentally rotate them in your mind to figure out which letter it was. This is how important it is for our daily life. Chiropractors have long observed a wide variety of changes in people under their care following adjustments. Along the wide spectrum of claims from those who are under care are those who say they feel better or are able to focus better, and those who notice improvements in movement and coordination. This study takes us a little further down the path of understanding why this could be. So have you seen your chiropractor lately? You may want to have your brain's conductor fine-tuned too.
I'll try to post that on our Facebook page because I do have access to those videos. But what's interesting too, if you think about brain rotation and numbers, think of dyslexias, right? That's prefrontal cortex dysfunction. So when I go back and I talk about, you kind of take it back to with children and subluxation upper cervical, if they are upper cervical subluxated and they're not turning their head, are they getting that full development to the prefrontal cortex? Not really. It's really funny too, because when I love hearing these stories from people, like I have a mom who always loves to tell me that she went from having 10 tabs open to like two because her focus has gotten better. One of my firefighters swear that I was the reason he passed his exam because he was a horrible test taker. And all of a sudden now he passed his exam. I've had parents come in with their arms crossed, scary moms. There's one particular, not you, don't worry, I love you. But came to my office and was like, hey, why is my kid better at math? And I'm like, and back then I didn't know because we didn't have the prefrontal cortex. I'm like, well, we stimulate the brain with adjustments. She goes, so that's a thing? I was like, yes. And she's like, okay. And I've heard that before, which is really, really cool. All right, so prefrontal cortex. If you ever want to like, my nurses always are like, oh, that's the part of the brain you stimulate because it's such a cool. Or even my psych students, my psych patients, psych patient. That sounds funny. My patients who are in mental health. Whew, I know. You're like, that's not a nice thing to say about your patients. The prefrontal cortex is what makes us human. It's empathy. It's that part of the brain. Um, if you ever, Dr. Perlmutter, I actually got to meet him. I nerded out so hard when I met him. I've read most of his books. In Brainwash, it's a great book. He talks about the prefrontal cortex. It literally is what makes us human. It is right in that front. It's 10% of the brain. I like to call it the CEO of the principal because I feel like she's the one who keeps everyone in check, right? So what does it do? Executive functions. Do you know how many kindergarten teachers have come in here, like first grade teachers, second grade teachers, and looked at me and said, Dr. Jamie, you got to get your hands on more kids because the executive functions in these kindergartners are bad. They say it's getting worse and worse every year, and this year is like particularly bad. I've been hearing it a lot. Go figure, right? Goal-directed tasks, speech and language. I I accidentally, when I first opened my practice, helped in early interventions son, a girl who works for early intervention son, who was speech delay. And he was 3, and I adjusted him for the first time. And I think he said something like backpack. I think Dora the Explorer was like a thing back then. And his first word was backpack. And so she saw this. And then all of a sudden, she referred me all of these kids for speech delay. And you should have seen what a mess my office was. Yes, there's a reason we don't have any plants anymore. But my office was taken over by toddlers, and it was so cool. I'd adjust them, and we watched them crawl for the first time. Like she was so in on it. It was so neat to see that. I had so many speech delay kids when I first opened, and it is really cool. We start adjusting kids, and they start talking. Attention, ADHD, that's that part of the brain. I know with my focus, it's gotten so much better. Visual gaze control, think of reading comprehension. Psychiatric disorders, because this is the empathy part of the brain, has to do a lot with prefrontal cortex. Chronic pain wires there. I think that's why you know, it's funny. I think I'm one of the few practitioners that are like, I love fibromyalgia. See, that should be a clip. You know, I do because chronic pain wires in the prefrontal cortex. I think these people just have a lot of subluxations and the medical world doesn't know what to do with them. Because if you look at the prefrontal cortex and the stress response symptoms, sure as hell sounds like fibromyalgia. They just don't know how to categorize these people. I think they just need to see a chiropractor. Autonomic functions, how we decrease the stress response. Spatial awareness, you think of like, especially people with Parkinson's and autism, they don't have spatial awareness. I was working with a 3-year-old who was autistic, and after his adjustments, he was able to sit on a rocking chair, like a rocking horse for the first time. He had core strength. That has to do with that. Pelvic floor muscles. We are known as chiropractors are known on research for moms to give birth faster. It's a 25% faster birth for a woman under chiropractic care. First baby, second baby is like 30-40%. How cool is that? Pelvic floor has a lot to do with that prefrontal cortex. So the whole connection between the prefrontal cortex, remember we talked about the stress response. The reason subluxations create that stress response and adjustments fix that is through the prefrontal cortex. So we're going to do a fun little thing because I got to wake you guys up because, we're doing good. We're getting nerdy. We're doing good. So everyone do this. Cool. And everyone flip it over. Sweet. Hey, you guys have a prefrontal cortex. Good job. So this is your prefrontal cortex. Keep holding it. And underneath it is the reptilian part of the brain called the amygdala, right? And the amygdala is that stress part of the brain, right? So if you're in fight or flight, everything goes straight to it. But if you're not, everything goes to the prefrontal cortex, which will make you use your brain and think about it before it goes to the amygdala. You ever heard of someone like, they talk about that a lot, that get out of that wrong part of your brain when you're angry, like go for a walk, take a breath. They say be responsive, not reactive. That's because you're in the wrong part of your brain, the amygdala, the reptilian. I love calling it the dark side of the brain because I'm a Star Wars fanatic. So we call it the dark side of the brain, that amygdala, because it's anger, fear, aggression. So we really want that prefrontal cortex to keep control of it. Uh-oh. But what happens when you're in stress? Boom, right? You guys are not doing it with me. This is so sad. All right. No stress? Stress. Yeah. Look at you guys go, right? So it's fine. You guys are good. So the prefrontal cortex downregulates this. Great example of this. I'm going to get murdered for saying this. Did people use their brains during COVID? Or were they going out and buying toilet paper and doing really stupid things? Do we look back and go, what the hell were we thinking? A lot. Yeah, we were. Hello. Boom. Fear puts us in the wrong part of our brain. That's why people did really stupid crap. And now we're back in our prefrontal cortex going, what the hell were we thinking? So that's why when we get adjusted, what's really cool is that we take you out of that stress response. That's the connection between proprioception and decreasing the stress response. We know now, which is really, really cool. Other things like mental health, empathy. Oh my gosh, one of my kiddos, one of my Cairo babies, I saw him when he was 6 months old. I even ski with the kid. I love him. He's 12 now. They, unfortunately, the time we live in, right? They had like a scare at their school last year, and they all had to do the shutdown. He was the kid, like I could cry, hugging, his mom's telling me this, hugging the other students, going, it's going to be okay. And I was like, holy crap, that is prefrontal cortex at its best. This kid has so much empathy. It's wonderful. But high blood pressure, the brainstem activation, high blood pressure, tight muscles. That's why you guys love me. Sleep disorders, GI issues, even your immune system. I mean, if you're in stress response, if your immune system's good, no. Chronic disease because of inflammation. Remember, we just linked it to inflammation, and inflammation causes everything. So this is going to take me. Remember, I said that Pakistan, that neuroscience from Pakistan is now doing those studies. Well, guess what? We have some of the research back, and it was only the last few years that this research is coming out. So stay tuned. There's some. So Heidi was telling me, Dr. Heidi, when we were in Vegas in February, that she went from having like her little lab, her little brain science lab. I think she's like 30 now, all over the world, which is so cool. So stay tuned for some really cool research. That's where we got our chiropractic MRI research study out of, and so this guy, what he did, and this is crazy, it was only one adjustment that they tested limb function. So these are people who have had strokes. So they've lost limb function. If you ever see someone with a stroke, you could see that weakness on this side of the body. And what they tested was pushing down, like as if you're pushing on a gas pedal, right? Plantar flexion. After one adjustment, this is wild, they pushed 64% harder. What? Isn't that wild? I know. It's crazy. And they did dorsiflexion too. I didn't put it up here, which was I think 33%, which is still insane. I think any type of function you bring back in someone who thinks they're never going to function again is pretty cool. So then they did a more that study, and now there's like when I saw Heidi speak, she was saying, okay, so now they're working on a study that, well, what the hell? What if we saw them 3 times a week for 12 visits? Let's see what happens now. The results were insane. They published it, and it wasn't that long ago. Let's see if I can find the date on that. So 2021 is when the study was done. So it wasn't really that long ago. And 96% increase in function from what they did was they used all like a ton. You can see all the assessment tools they use in the study. That's how you assess someone with a stroke for their function. With chiropractic versus just PT, went up 96% versus 78%. I mean, that's how well these people did under chiropractic care who lost brain function. So what is it doing for y'all who have decent brain function, right? Kind of cool to think about. So your last word's obviously chiropractic. You know I was going to pull. You guys all knew where I was going. You knew where I was going with that. But 130 tomorrow, and I just showed you some cool studies that just came out that show that we're getting better with age. I am so excited to see where chiropractic goes in the next few years. And this is why when I was in Michigan, I was like yelling down the aisles, like they got a couple hundred doctors, probably maybe more in there. It was a packed room, and I'm like, guys, because I do research reviews. I'm like, what area of medicine gets better with time? And I think this is why like I get so peeved when I hear like the nonsense on TikTok, because we are so well researched. It's incredible the research that's coming out on chiropractic. We just don't hear about it. So I always say the possibilities are huge. Like we got to do this. Like this is so cool that chiropractic has come so far. And the crazy thing is, it's not just chiropractors saying this. This study was not done by chiropractors. It showed, this was recent too. This was a very, very recent study. It showed that forward head posture, I think it came out like 2 years ago, forward head posture has been linked to cognitive decline. So I am not crazy when I say, who do you see in their older age who's healthier, who have healthier brains and healthier overall? Someone who stands like this or someone who stands like this and is active, right? Duh. So it's not just us that's saying it. So I always say the bump is not just ugly, it is bad for your brain. Another study showed that forward head posture versus regular, like good head posture, messes up your autonomic nervous system. And there are those big words again, sensory motor control, which means that you have crappy Wi-Fi from your brain to your body if you're standing like this, right? Hence my Nerf gun. See, tied that in. But seriously, if you have a bump, you need to see a chiropractor. You probably should have seen one about 10 years ago. Because by the time that thing forms and we're coming down, 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 you've seen a chiropractor a long time ago. And I'm seeing it younger and younger and younger. And then one last thing, there's been some like weird, like, I don't know why. I feel like it's like this. Sometimes we'll get these like weird, like TikTokers or funky articles like are coming out and be like, oh, you don't let your chiropractor see your baby. Which I'm like, what is your alternative? You want to put them on Miralax? Hey, peace. Okay. But for all y'all who want to know, is it safe? Study number one and study number two. And yes, there are more than this, but these are my two favorite ones that shows how safe chiropractic is. They did a study that I didn't put up there of 22,000 parents that they interviewed. I believe it was in New Zealand, and they found like zero issues and like some kind of like 90% effective. Like parents were really happy with chiropractic care. Uh, it's crazy. It just shows how safe we really are. Why? Because our force is so low. This is actually a relatively newer study just to show how little force to adjust a baby. I don't know what these TikTokers think, like what we do with a baby. Like, really? Like, you really think that we would do that to a kid? Very strange to me. So, yes, chiropractic is safe. Yes, chiropractic is safe for babies. And yes, more babies need to get checked because I really believe if we got them checked early on, we would see a lot less executive function out there. I really believe that. So, how do we know if you're subluxated and you need to see a chiropractor? Guys, everyone's here now. You notice that? We don't really see this dude anymore. It's this, right? I don't know. It's weird what we used to see. Like, it's funny how the exercises I give for the neck is literally the same for everyone now. It used to be, I used to see too much curve in the neck. I don't anymore. Wonder why, right? So, the thing I'm going to leave you guys with, the way I want to tie it together for you guys, and this is so important. I am on my soapbox. I literally, when I retire, I just want to be literally, do you remember Snoopy, Linus, and Lucy? Lucy with her therapy 5 cents booth? That's going to be me in front of Beverly Hospital give me your C-section babies. Here's your consent. Because I truly believe that if I got my hands on children, even vaginal birth, right? If I got my hands more on babies, I would see less adults and less teenagers with anxiety. It kills me how many kids, when I'm in that room, going over their medications, especially my 19 to like 25-year-olds on all kinds of prescriptions, anxiety, antidepressants, like multiple at that age. I'm like, if we just get our hands on these kids so that they're turning their head properly, what does that mean for their proprioception, right? Especially if 80% were blocked in the 80s, what are they blocked now, especially with the 33% C-section rate? So, hey guys, you're going to love this. Women, why do we have two boobs? Bras would be so much cheaper, wouldn't it? Our backs would hurt less if we just had one. What does a baby need to do? What can a baby move when it's born? It's got to turn its head. We were not made stupidly. We just got to fix that interference. We were supposed to push babies out, not pull them by the head. So ask my nurses in here. It is so funny. I love the TMI because they call them the Dr. Jamie's Army of Nurses. It's like Dumbledore's Army of Nurses. Two very recent have happened this within like I think the last year. It had to be this year. I was in my office. I was checking a baby, and it's funny because both the moms are nurses. One of the babies was so stuck like this. Another one I should have videoed after. I adjusted the baby about as precious checking an avocado, right? And she goes, "Hey, can I nurse my baby?" Well, of course you can. Like you're my last of the morning. Just go do your thing. She comes, this is funny, it's happened now twice this year. She comes running on the corner, baby on boo. Dr. Jamie, she wasn't feeding on this side. She is now. And I was laughing. I'm like, yeah, that's because her proprioception's better. And now she's just crushing it. So it's pretty cool to see that. And so I will be on my soapbox forever about kids and babies and the research behind it. And of course, the research behind how we help your guys' brain. So remember, it's not about pain. It's about your brain. That's why you see a chiropractor. We're good with pain. Eh, but we're better with the brain stuff. So thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate you guys so much for getting nerdy with me. Mwah. Send the secret words.